We often don't realize what's different about the time that we're in until it has passed. A video recently landed in my feed that I found rather interesting. The video is titled "In the Video Game Aisle at Target in 2002" by a YouTuber named Vampire Robot. It was exactly that. No commentary, no music, and no one looking at the camera. Just an ordinary day at Target in 2002. With all the ambient sounds of the electronic displays and people chatting. This video is super relaxing to watch. It makes you realize just how different of a world it was and how much has changed. The walls had this neon strip going around the entire store, and the displays on the ends of the aisles were all covered in this gray plastic, with circles cut out to fit the TVs. Nowadays, looking at it, it looks like such a strange and tacky design choice, but then it was just so normal. These are just the things that I noticed when watching these videos. I'm sure your own personal experiences are what tailor what you think about when watching things like this. The comments are always filled with interesting tidbits about the times or personal stories. I have seen loads of videos like this, usually of people vlogging or walking around with a camera, but in those videos you see the person behind the camera, or they are filming for a purpose, such as the last day of school. But Vampire Robot's videos are different. These videos contain no commentary and no one staring at the camera. It really feels like pure documentation. Almost like genuine time traveling. But how can this be? How did this person stumble upon loads of uninterrupted faceless commentary? Did this person just document various businesses throughout their life? Did this person find these tapes and upload them for the world to see? Well, I think I have the answer to these questions. Looking through this person's profile, they seem to play into the whole time travel thing. They have a Back to the Future picture as their banner to the channel, and they don't answer any questions of where these videotapes come from, even though they seem pretty active in their comment section. While I don't know how they found these tapes exactly, I believe I know what they are. This footage is what is known as B-roll footage for news stories. B-roll footage is the background footage for a news broadcast or television show. It's used to establish the scene, usually while a news reporter is talking over it. Vampire Robot must have come across loads of B-roll footage ranging from the 70s to the 2000s. While watching videos like this, or really anything that triggers nostalgia, you often feel both comforted and sad. It feels comforting to think about these times and to relive experiences that were seemingly forgotten about for years. But you also feel sadness for the fact that you cannot return to these times. The comments of these videos are very telling of this sort of thing. Often enough though, these comments don't just celebrate life then, they seem to have a bit of disdain for life nowadays. They often point to certain aspects of life, such as the way people are dressed, or the kindness of an employee, to show that the world was so much better then. Was life really better then? Well, better in some ways and worse in a lot of other ways. Things were less expensive and less jobs were replaced by machines, but
almost everyone has.
There are people being Ted Kaczynski.
Things were definitely not perfect. Nostalgia definitely clouds those other details. The good old days always changes depending on who you ask. If you ask my parents, it was probably the 80s. If you ask a millennial born in the late 80s, it was probably the 90s. And if you ask someone my age or younger, it was the 2000s or even the 2010s. Hell, I see some kids in comment sections even talking about how they miss being in 2020 during quarantine, as if times have dramatically changed since then. To everyone, times were better simply when they were younger, and the world was newer to them. There's no denying that life is different now than it was in the past. Things have changed, and in many ways for the worse. The world is becoming increasingly more complex, fast-paced, and expensive, which makes it harder to keep up with the older that you are. The world is constantly changing in both good and bad ways, but as you get older, it becomes harder to focus on the good and easier to focus on the bad. And if you really hate the way the world has ended up, you end up falling into declinism. Declinism is the belief that the world or a society is trending towards decline. People often associate declinism with these same ideas about nostalgia because people can point to how they felt during the past as an example of how things have declined. If you'd like, take a moment to pause the video to read this comment I found. This is really interesting because the person who wrote this thinks the term declinism is just a big fancy word to negate nostalgia and blur people's frame of reference in order to downplay how good things were back then, so that we don't preserve those lifestyles of the past. It makes sense on paper, but at its core, believing in declinism is a logical fallacy. There's no point in which times were inherently good, since it's all based on when you were born, and when you were a kid. The world is not in constant decline, but instead is becoming increasingly more complex, which in return makes the issues of now seem so much worse than those of the past. Even if things aren't great right now, I don't think that looking at nostalgia is a very good frame of reference. Thinking this way doesn't give you some profound viewpoint on life, it just deters you from doing anything because at the end of the day, it's only going to get worse. This tends to happen to people that let nostalgia cloud their view as they age. But people don't get that way purely just based on age. It's about how interested they are in life. What I mean is, life is good when you are interested in the world around you. When you're a kid, everything is new to you, so you actively go about your day discovering new things and learning more about the world you live in. But as you get older, you tend to get stuck in your ways, and don't branch out as much. Due to work, or school, or other factors in life, you have to make much more of an effort to find new things to enjoy. People tend to stop discovering new things in their late 20s and early 30s, which is why many people's good old days is when they're in their early to mid 20s. To be completely honest with you, I fell down this nostalgia rabbit hole pretty heavily and was depressed because of it, but I'm sure I wasn't the only one. During quarantine, I was working at a supermarket, where customers talked about how horrible life was every day. It was exhausting after a while and really weighed on me heavily, and I just so heavily wanted life to go back to normal. I know I wasn't alone either. Swanene has a fantastic video where he talks about his experiences being in school during that time, and I relate pretty heavily to it. During this time, I was watching tons of old YouTube videos from when I was in high school, and specifically listened to an old Joji mix called Joji Trained Mix. It was comforting reminiscing about the past, and was easier than thinking about the present. I stopped making things, and really lost focus of what I wanted to do with my life. We've all been through some pretty desolate times, but I believe there's something important to learn from this. If you fall into a deep state of nostalgia, you can't stay there forever. People who feed off of nostalgia fear change, and if they stay like that for too long, they will end up becoming so disconnected and hating the world around them, like this guy. When you are deep in this nostalgic pit, you have to actively branch out and find new things to be excited about, or use the nostalgia that you're feeling to be creative. Liminal spaces, vaporwave, and tons of other art movement have spawned from the feeling of nostalgia. When you make art, you turn that feeling into something positive and creative, so other people can understand and enjoy it. When you feel stuck in your ways, find a new show, play a new game, or discover a new song to listen to. Hell, it doesn't have to be consumable media. Find a new hobby, go exercise, find a new place to hike, start oil painting or making sculptures. As long as you're doing something or discovering something new, you'll appreciate life in a way that you didn't before. The reason I made this video is because I've been seeing more and more people idolize the past and really put nostalgia on a pedestal. I believe preserving the past is important, but I think it's even more important to take a step back and learn to appreciate what's right in front of you at this very moment. I just want to say thank you for being here and helping me on this journey. If it's inspired you in any way, shape, or form, I'm eternally grateful to have done so. Thank you for watching. I don't know if I'm gonna come back to this channel anytime soon, considering that it's been over a year since my last upload, but I'm always active in the comments if you want to ask me something. If you want to follow me on my artistic journey, you can follow me on my Instagram. Thank you.